A good morning in Danish time. My name is Cheng Nielsen. I'm extremely pleased to be given this opportunity to present a BIMCO IMSBC Code webinar to all our BIMCO members who are tuning in now. I hope all of you are seated comfortably and are ready to spend the next 30 minutes or so with me learning more about the IMSBC Code. Now, before I get into that presentation, I would like to inform you how I would present this webinar. The webinar will be divided into 3 parts. First, I would focus on the general difficulties that ship owners face when they transport solid bulk cargoes. And then I'll move on to the recommendations where we BIMCO will put forward and which we hope will help to improve the situation. Last but not least, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll take questions from you relating to the webinar. This webinar will be recorded, so you have ample opportunities to view it again. Now that we have got this webinar format out of the way, let's get on with the presentation. What are the general difficulties that ship owners face when they are transporting solid bulk cargoes? To answer that, I had to ask some questions to our BIMCO ship owners, some of whom are actually leading carriers in dry bulk cargo trade. From the conversations that I had with them, I went away with 2 main conclusions. 1, ship owners feel that documentation required by SOLAS and the IMSBC Code is not taken seriously. And 2, the requirements of the IMSBC Code are not completely fully understood. What do the ship owners mean by that? Now, before we get down to the nitty-gritty, let us set some IMSBC Code parameters in place so that we are all on the same page. When a ship owner has to load a solid bulk cargo, the first thing he needs is cargo information from the shipper in order for the ship owner to identify the cargo in the code. The shipper has a statutory obligation under SOLAS Chapter 6, Regulation 2 to provide appropriate and relevant cargo information sufficiently in advance, that is prior to loading, to enable the master or his representative to put precautions relating to stowage and safe carriage in place. Now, what sort of information is the shipper supposed to furnish? This is all set out in Section 4 of the IMSBC Code. This cargo information that's provided by the shipper will have to be accompanied by a declaration as stipulated in Section 4.2.3 of the Code. Now, an example of this cargo information and declaration form is actually set out in the IMSBC Code. Another form may be used for this cargo declaration, so you don't need to follow the one that's in the code. And this is where the problem arises, which you will witness later. This is the cargo information and declaration form that's taken out by the IMSBC Code. We encourage all members to actually use this form because this more or less complies with what is required under SOLAS and the code for the shipper to provide the relevant information. You have the bulk cargo shipping name here, and then you have the IMSBC Code group classification here. These are the 2 pieces of the most crucial information you need in a cargo declaration form. I've set it out here on my slide, the most important pieces of information. So now, do shippers provide the information that is required of them? Well, let's take a look at some of the real cargo declaration forms that have been supplied by our BIMCO ship owner members. And some of these forms are actually submitted to the ship owners last year as well as this year. The first one you have on the slide here, it's a declaration that is made in accordance with the IMO code. I don't know what the IMO code is. I don't think it even exists. The IMSBC code does not make any reference to an IMO code. As you can see from the declaration here, there's no bulk cargo shipping name. There is no cargo group classification. But what we do know about this declaration is that it is a product that's called solvent extracted soil protein concentrate containing not more than 1.5% oil and 11% moisture. So this is a seed cake product. And it's a seed cake product, soil proteins, oil, and moisture content certificate. When the shipper tried to submit this to the ship owner, it was rejected because it was not the cargo information and declaration form that's required by Section 4.2 of the IMSBC Code. The shipper's argument was that I do not have to follow the sample that's given in the code. I can provide any other form of declaration, and this is the one that I'm going to supply, and this will be sufficient for our purposes. So this is a very clear reflection of a shipper not taking documentation required by the code and SOLAS seriously. The second cargo declaration form that you see here is an IMO certificate. Again, I don't know what an IMO certificate is because the IMSBC code does not make any reference to that at all. And here, there's no bulk cargo shipping name, there's no cargo group classification. And imagine, this form was actually submitted to one of our ship owner members this year. And this certificate is quite bizarre because it's making a declaration certifying that in accordance with international security standards regulated by the IMO. What international security standards is the shipper talking about? Because the code does not make any reference to that. And then we can see that this is a certificate about a cargo that's called copper concentrates. And we know copper concentrates is a mineral concentrate in the IMSBC code. And you can see the information that's furnished is about present moisture content, flow moisture point, transportable moisture limit, the TML, angle of repose, stowage factor. So essentially, this is a certificate about, a group A cargo, moisture content, and TML. And this certificate, it says here, he's declaring, the shipper, that the above mentioned material can be loaded on the vessel with no risks, which is not true because copper concentrates is a group A cargo. It is capable of actually liquefying if shipped, at a moisture content in excess of its TML. So here you have a shipper not taking documentation seriously and also not understanding fully the requirements of a group A cargo. We have the third cargo declaration form here, and you can see that it's more or less like the one that we have in the IMSBC code, the sample. But what is missing? The bulk cargo shipping name. There isn't one there. But on closer examination of the information sheet, you can see that it's a cargo that the shipper is trying to arrange. It's called urea, and that is listed in the IMSBC code, and it's classified correctly as Group C. But hang on. Look closely. The shipper wants to ship it in bags. So obviously the shipper thought that, in bags, this is regulated by the IMSBC code. No. Cargoes that are shipped in bags in package form are not regulated by the IMSBC code. So here again, a shipper not understanding fully the requirements of the code. Now we have a shipper's declaration here that was submitted to one of our ship owner members in July 2019. There is a bulk cargo shipping name at last on top of the form, and it is metallurgical coke. But when you try to look for metallurgical coke in the IMSBC code, you do not find it. So this is not a proper bulk cargo shipping name. What do you do when you come across cases like this? A couple of things. First, you can actually go back to the shipper and ask for more clarification. asking for the physical and chemical properties of the cargo, asking, how is it manufactured, processed, what is the end use of the product. In this instance here is metallurgical coke. It can be, a coke cargo, which is a Group C cargo in the IMSBC code, a residual byproduct as a result of distillation of coal, or it can be actually coking coal, which will fall under the generic entry of coal, which is a Group A and B cargo. So if you cannot find the cargo that's listed in the IMSBC code at all, then this cargo, say, not metallurgical coke, could be a cargo that falls under section 1.3 of the IMSBC code. And that is a section for cargoes that are not listed in the code, and you will have to seek approval from the competent authority at the port of loading. And in certain cases, a tripartite agreement will need to be set out in order to actually carry this cargo safely. Here we have a 2018 cargo declaration, and it's still making reference to the BC code, which is an outdated name for the IMSBC code. And we have again two crucial pieces of information that's missing: no bulk cargo shipping name and no cargo group classification. The shipper has declared it as a non-hazardous grain cargo, and the shipper has also declared that it's non-hazardous to the marine environment. So the shipper obviously thought that grain cargoes are actually regulated by the IMSBC code, which is not. Take note that grain cargoes are regulated by the International Grain Code. And for a grain cargo, you do not need to make a declaration under MARPL Annex 5 for HME substances, which the shipper has done in this case. Here we have an almost perfect cargo information and declaration form because it has a title here, International Maritime Solid Bulk Cargoes Form. And there is a bulk cargo shipping name, zinc concentrates, which is actually a proper bulk cargo shipping name, and you can find it in the IMSBC code. And the shipper has classified it correctly as a Group A and B. But what the shipper has done incorrectly is storage requirements. He has indicated that the storage requirements has to be as per IMDG code. Why on earth did he put that? Because IMDG code does not regulate the carriage of solid bulk cargoes. IMDG code regulates the carriage of packaged goods. So he should, in actual fact, be putting as per the IMSBC code. Because if you look up the entry of zinc concentrates in the code, there are special storage requirements. So when a ship owner receives such a form, it's very confusing information, and it can also jeopardize the safety of the ship and its crew if the ship owner would have to follow the storage requirements indicated here. So a summary of the first round of difficulties which ship owners face when they are transporting solid bulk cargoes. As you can see, not correct cargo declaration form as required by section 4.2. Shippers trying to go around this requirement by submitting a certificate about the oil and moisture content, for example, like seed cake, or submitting a certificate on the moisture content and TML of a Group A cargo, which is not correct. And then you have seen wrong or inappropriate references declarations made, like making a declaration in accordance with the IMO code, or declaring this certificate in accordance with international security regulations. And the third one, no bulk cargo shipping name and no cargo group classification. You've seen loads of the cargo declaration forms earlier where these information was actually missing. And even when there is a bulk cargo shipping name, it's not the proper bulk cargo shipping name, as in metallurgical coke. And you have also seen cargo declaration forms that are used for grain cargoes and also for bag cargoes. Now, the next round of cargo declaration forms that I'm going to show you are actually declaration forms that are submitted for very popular cargoes. The first one here was submitted in June 2019, and this is a shipper's declaration on bauxite. We know as a result of the Bulk Jupiter incident where there was a loss of a lot of seafarers' lives and the capsizing of the ship, a global bauxite working group was actually set up by the IMO. The Global Bauxite Working Group research has been completed, and as a result of that research, 2 new bauxite schedules were actually determined, finalized, and adopted under Amendment 05-19 of the IMSBC Code. Now, how do you distinguish the bauxite cargo that you're fixing, whether it's a Group A or a Group C cargo? And this is where the criteria comes in, particle size distribution formula. This is the result of the Global Bauxite Working Group research. Now, these 2 schedules have already been finalized and is out there. What the shipper, he has submitted this declaration form. He has gone on another particle size distribution formula, which is not in compliance with the new Group A bauxite schedule. And that is very, very dangerous, because you could actually have a case where it will liquefy for the bauxite cargo. So bear in mind, if you are shipping cargoes that are Group A and there are, a very strict criteria, follow that criteria in the schedule. Another popular solid bulk cargo that's carried is seed cakes. We always get a lot of inquiries on seed cakes and whether it's dangerous and whether it is non-hazardous. For seed cake entries in the IMSBC Code, there are a couple of parameters. You have to determine the oil and moisture content. You also have to determine the method of extraction. Now, this shipper, he submitted this declaration form for his seed cake. He's supposed to declare the oil and moisture content, but what he has declared was the oil and fat content. And this is a very clear reflection of a shipper not knowing the requirements of a particular cargo schedule in the code. He is classified as Group B, which is correct. But what is bizarre is that he has also given information on the transportable moisture limit of a Group B cargo. Group B cargoes do not have transportable moisture limit. They are only applicable for Group A cargoes. Obviously, the shipper does not know the requirements of a Group B cargo nor the requirements of a Group A cargo, and he doesn't know how to apply the application of a TML onto the cargo declaration form. So the second round of difficulties that the ship owners face when they're transporting solid bulk cargoes are summarized here. Incorrect application of particle size distribution formula, which I've shown you earlier for bauxite. On this point, I would just like to mention a lot of cargoes, from now onwards will be decided by this particle size distribution formula, especially cargoes where you have to distinguish whether it is a Group A or Group C. Apart from bauxite, the particle size distribution formula is also in iron ore fines, manganese ore fines, and also for coal cargoes too, where you have to distinguish whether it is a Group B or a Group A and B cargo. So take note of this, new criteria for cargoes which fall under Group A and B or C. And you have seen that, a lot of shippers do not understand the precise requirements or the exact requirements of a particular cargo schedule, which I've just shown you, seed cake, as a classic example. And also not understanding how do you apply the TML or the moisture content. Now, I've taken this cargo information and declaration form to highlight one purpose. There are a lot of entries in the IMSBC Code where they are actually generic entries covering a whole range of cargoes. Take, for example, ammonium nitrate-based fertilizers, non-hazardous. What this shipper has done is actually, he wants to load NPK fertilizers. And what he did was actually lumping all the different grades of the same cargo into one cargo information and declaration form because he thought it's one generic entry. This is not correct because each different grade of the same cargo have different behavioral characteristics And this is very, very crucial because different precautions may be required for different grade of fertilizer cargo. So take note, for generic entries, you have to make sure that the shipper does not load all the different grades of the same cargo into one cargo information and declaration form. Now this cargo declaration form, I just want to highlight to you that the shipper is not exactly familiar with how he should make a declaration under MARPL Annex 5 as to whether the solid bulk cargo that he's transporting is actually hazardous or non-hazardous to the marine environment. Under MARPL Annex 5, you have to declare as HME or not, and this is for the purpose of discharging of the solid bulk cargo residues. Now, this was submitted last year, May 2018, and what this shipper has done is that he's declaring it under EHS/marine pollutant as not a marine pollutant. He's not actually required to do that declaration because it's not relevant at all for solid bulk cargoes. This requirement only pertains to cargoes carried in package form. Human health criteria, he has declared that is not available. When the HME criteria and requirements were introduced a few years back, a lot of shippers could not find information pertaining to human health criteria. And the IMO actually gave a grace period where you can waive this requirement. But this grace period had actually expired on 31st December 2014. From 1st of January 2015 onwards, you have to satisfy the full HME criteria under MARPL Annex 5 when you are actually declaring your solid bulk cargo as HME or not. So this is actually incorrect declaration. And further down this declaration form, he has made another declaration, duplicate declaration. He's declared as not hazardous to the marine environment. So when the ship owner received this form, he was he's actually having conflicting information. You're declaring it as non-hazardous, but at the same time you are also declaring that you haven't fulfilled the full HME criteria by saying that human health criteria you have not got the information available. So here again, this is not a satisfying declaration, and of course the ship owner had to go back for more clarification. So the third round of difficulties, where I have put a summary here: incorrect MARPL Annex 5 declaration for HME cargoes. You use the old criteria, the human health criteria. You use IMDG requirement, which is not relevant for solid bulk cargoes. And as shown earlier for ammonium nitrate-based fertilizers, when you have generic entries, make sure that you do not have all the different grades of the same cargo lumped into one cargo information and declaration form. Now, ship owners not only face difficulties with cargo information and declaration forms, they also encounter other difficulties, like shippers using earlier amendments of the IMSBC Code. They don't use the current one. The current one is actually Amendment 04-17. Ship owners have also experienced where they cannot find the contact details of the competent authority at the port of loading in the circular that's issued by the IMO BC1/Circular 74. And there are also cases where they do find the contact details of the competent authority on the list. They can't get in touch with them, or there is virtually no response from the competent authority in question. And the worst scenario is where a shipper does not even submit a cargo information and declaration form and submits only a material safety data sheet. So from all the examples you have seen here, it is very clear that shippers, they do not take documentation seriously required by SOLAS or the IMSBC Code. And the ship owners do find it challenging to actually insist on the right documentation required. And when they do get the right documentation required, they also do find discrepancies in some cases. And also the shipper finds it very challenging because, when you have problems like that, it's very hard to actually try to find or to ascertain exactly what type of cargo he's supposed to have on his ship. and also to find the correct set of carriage requirements to be put in place for safe carriage of the ship and its crew. So how can we actually improve the situation? BIMCO has some recommendations. Recommendation 1, bulk cargo shipping name. Heighten the use of this terminology in the shipping industry. We need to really, get the shippers using this bulk cargo shipping name. And this will bring about a twofold result. First, this will help the ship owners tremendously to identify the cargo in the code. And 2, this will force the shippers to actually look into the IMSBC code to find the list of bulk cargo shipping names that are actually available in the code. And they'll also be forced to familiarize themselves with the code. To heighten the use of the bulk cargo shipping name. Recommendation 2, cargo information and declaration form. We need to educate the shippers. Unfortunately, in SOLAS or in the IMSBC code, there is very minimum information or guidance in that aspect. And that leads me to recommendation 3. You can help the shippers by using the BIMCO cargo database section on our website. How do you do that? Well, this is a screenshot taken from our website on the cargo database section. Here you have the solid bulk cargo database where we have all the cargoes that are available in the cargo database, and all these cargoes are actually found in the IMSBC code, and also some other cargoes that fall outside the code as well, based on inquiries coming from you members. And you have under this section here IMSBC code, which we will deal in a minute, and you have a section on the IMSBC code circulars where we have all the circulars that are relevant to the code, in this section, and it's for your easy use and simple, downloading. Under general solid bulk cargo information, this is where we list the SOLAS requirements as well as, the relevant requirements in the code, so that you can easily access this information online without referring to the code, which is quite a bulky instrument here on my desk. Now, under the IMSBC code, there's a whole list of documents under this section. You have the first IMSBC code cargo declaration form. Click on that, and this will bring you to the requirements of the cargo declaration form with the SOLAS, and you have section 4.2 listing all the cargo information that you need from the shipper. And also in this particular landing page, you also have a cargo information declaration form that is taken from the IMSBC code for your simple downloading. Give it to the shipper so that you be rest assured that you're actually getting the right cargo information and declaration form, and not some other cargo declaration form which is completely, in non-compliance with the code. Now we also have under the IMSBC code this section here. Is your cargo a group A, B, C, or A and B cargo? Now if you click on here, you will find in this section a list of cargoes that are group A, a list of cargoes that are group B, a list of cargoes that are group C, and a list of cargoes that are group A and B. We have inquiries from our members many a times, when they're trying to do a fixture or they have a cargo at hand, they're not too sure whether the shipper has made the correct declaration, they want to make a quick check. This is where you can actually go online onto our website to easily check, whether your cargo is a group A cargo or a group B cargo or just simply a non-hazardous cargo. Here, group A cargoes, the whole list is here. And if you do actually find the cargo you're looking for, you simply click on it and it brings you directly to the cargo information sheet for that cargo. And here you have the list of group B cargoes. These listings of all the different cargoes in the cargo group classification, all these listings, you will not find these listings in the IMSBC code. You'll not find it anywhere in the world except on our BIMCO homepage, because we the BIMCO Secretariat actually prepared all these listings. So make use of them. And, it's easy to use, easy to find, and quick as well. Now, for people who are not very familiar with the IMSBC code or, recently introduced to the code, and the code is a bulky instrument, and you want to have a quick overview of, the requirements of the code, you can go into our step-by-step user guide chart, which we have prepared for people who want to know the code well. Click on that, and you have an overview of the IMSBC code at a glance. You have the basics here, and then you have the classification of the cargoes that are regulated by the IMSBC code. And also you have miscellaneous section where you have to take note about, things, that you have to be aware of. For example, entry into enclosed spaces, pesticides, fumigation recommendations by the IMO, or CO2 firefighting equipment, whether your cargo is exempted, from CO2 firefighting requirement, and also MARPL Annex 5 declaration, and also, other relevant circulars. So this is a very useful chart for people who are not familiar with the IMSBC code. Now, the last recommendation that I'd like to put forward is the BC1/Circular 74. This circular is available on our website, for your easy downloading. Just go on to the section under IMSBC code circulars, and voila, you get that circular straight away. Now, if you come across a situation where you can't find the competent authority on that circular, go to Jesus. Jesus is actually a website that's regulated by the IMO and is accessible to the public at large. And a lot of member government states go to Jesus to update their information. So you'll find the most current information there. But even if you go to Jesus and you still can't find the information you're looking for, then please approach us. We have our internal sources where we can tap, and we will assist you. Now, this concludes the first and second part of the BIMCO IMSBC code webinar. And that brings me to Q&A session where we will take questions from you. I'm looking at my IT support team to see whether there are any questions coming in. The first question that we have here is, how do you actually identify a bulk cargo shipping name of a cargo in the IMSBC code? Now, that is a very interesting and relevant question. A lot of people are not familiar with bulk cargo shipping names. So how do you know whether the name that you're looking for in the code is actually a BCSN? Bulk cargo shipping names actually come in the form of capital letters. So mineral concentrate, if you look into the code, it's not in capital letters. Now, I've got a second question here. Bauxite Group A is not in the current IMSBC code at the moment. So how can I ship this cargo since it is not in the code? Yes, it is not in the code under Amendment 04-17, and it is actually, it will be in the next amendment. So if you receive, a Group A bauxite cargo, it will have to be shipped under Section 1.3 of the IMSBC code. But using the preliminary carriage requirements that are set in place under the bauxite circular issued by the IMO. And this bauxite circular, again, is available on our BIMCO homepage. The next question, where can you find the HME criteria in the IMSBC code? I'm afraid you can't find the HME criteria in the IMSBC code. You have to actually look at MARPL Annex 5 to find that criteria. And the fourth question we have here is, did you just say that HME declaration is not, can you shift it down a bit? HME declaration is not required for grain cargoes. Can you actually confirm that? Yes, I can very easily. If you have a grain cargo, you do not have to make an HME declaration under MARPL Annex 5. HME declaration is only required for cargoes that are regulated by the IMSBC code. What options? We have another question here. Another one? I saw it just now. What option has an owner has if the shipper refused to provide information as per the IMSBC code? Well, then don't load the cargo because you need the cargo information. As simple as that. He has to comply. The shipper has a statutory obligation under SOLAS. I'm afraid that's the only course of action. Can you please repeat the issue with particle size distribution? If you look into the bauxite Group A schedule, there is a specific particle size distribution formula. It will say that, you have to make sure that particle size of less than 1 millimeter, it should not be more than 30% of the cargo that you intend to ship. And a particle size of 2.5 millimeters for bauxite, if I can remember correctly offhand, 1 millimeter and 2.5 millimeter. Look into the bauxite cargo schedule and you'll see what I mean. The particle size distribution formula and the percentage distribution is clearly spelled out in that schedule. If you have any issues understanding it, please do drop me a line and I can help you with that. I think that's the end of all the questions that we have received. I would like to thank you very much for actually taking your time to listen to this webinar. I hope that you have found it useful, informative, and also relevant for your line of work. I would appreciate if you could actually provide us some feedback on how we can actually, what you find which was useful and what you find that it was not useful, or what we can actually improve on, so that we will do it for our next webinar. And also, if you have ideas about what you want to see in the IMSBC Code webinar for the next one, please drop us a line and we'll look into that. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.